implied that Christian liturgy did not have its origin, as really it had, from the Jewish synagogue, but from the pagan mysteries. But let's dwell on what was to be the core, the conclusion of all Cassel's scholarly and philological investigation. According to Cassel, the Church is not a community of believers who share a certain set of dogmas and creeds. Christianism, in its core, is not defined by a doctrine, but by an action, a praxis, that is to say, by the participation to the cultic activities, to liturgy, to the liturgical mystery. This means, in Cassel's word, that Christianism is not a doctrine, but a mystery. If mystery is the proper names of the action of the priest, and more generally of Christian praxis, then I had to understand and define the main features of this praxis. What is a liturgical mystery? Considered as the very paradigm of human praxis. Let's take Cassel's 1928 essay on Mysteriengegenwart, mysteric presence. According to Cassel, liturgical mystery is not a representatio, a representation, but a presentatio, a presentation. In the liturgical mystery, we witness the real, effective presence of what is symbolized in it. I quote, "The expression mysteric presence, Mysteriengegenwart, is a tautology because a presence belongs constitutively to mystery." Cassel was a philologist. In that perspective, he had an incredible amount of investigations on the history of liturgy. And especially he concentrated on the patristic and scholastic theory of sacraments. Of course, sacrament is the very center of the Christian liturgy. According to this theory, the sacrament is a very peculiar activity. The sacraments efficiunt quod figurant, realize, enact what they mean. You immediately see that the first definition of a performative act, of a speech act, was elaborated in the theory of sacraments. The sacraments realize what they mean. The sacrament is a sign, but the peculiarity, the particularity of the sign is that it realizes what it means. So the theory of speech act was first elaborated to explain the peculiar nature of the sacramental action. The historian of religion Strumsa had an interest, as you probably know, has an interest theory in which he opposes what happened in Judaism to what happened in Christianity. While after the destruction of the temple, the rabbi spiritualized liturgy and substituted the Talmud Torah, the study of the Torah, to the ritual accomplishment of sacrifices in the temple, Christianism is still centered on sacrifice. But it is a peculiar sacrifice, an immolatio incruenta, without bloodshedding, a mystery in which Christ's passion and death is present, is made present. But it is present not as an historical presence, but in its effects, in its effectuality and efficacy, insofar as it operates the redemption from sin. Let's continue our analysis of this peculiar praxis, which is the liturgical mystery. One of the main consequences of its performative nature is the elaboration of the distinction between opus operatum and opus operantis. According to theologians, opus operatum names the sacramental action in its performative effectualities, according to which it will produce certain effects. It will produce, in any case, the effects. Opus operantis name the act insofar as it is enacted by a certain subject, a certain agent, the priest, which has a certain moral and physical qualities. The origin of this theory was in the 3rd century controversies on the validity of baptism. The problem was if the priest who administrates the baptism is a murderer or an apostate or whatever, is the baptism valid? And the church, there was a big discussion, but then the church decided that independently from the moral or character of the priest, the baptism is in any case valid. So they imagined, if we suppose that the priest had the intention to rape a woman and then he baptized her with this intention, in any case the baptism is valid. As a matter of fact, the only case in which the baptism is not valid is if the priest is joking. It's very strange, very strange. So the church cannot stand joking, because that's the only cause who can nullify a baptism, a sacrament. So it's a strange theory. You immediately understand it was meant to ensure the validity, the effectuality of the sacramental liturgy without any reference to the agent. When I was working on this theory, I wondering what was the origin, who invented this theory, and it was never mentioned. Sometimes a certain theologian was mentioned, but never a reference to the text. So the person who invented this theory was Pierre de Poitiers, a 13th century theologian who was one of the 3 labyrinths of France, as they were called. Petrus Abelard, Petrus Lombardus, and Pierre de Poitiers. They were the 3 labyrinths of France because they were very subtle. And with incredible amazement, I discovered that this theory, which became after the paradigm of the praxis of the priest, were first invented for the action of the devil. The idea was this: also the devil is a servant of God, and God therefore approves his works. But he will not approve the opera operantia, the works by means of which he has acted, because these are always bad. He only approves the opera operata, the effects of his action. So imagine how embarrassing should be for theologians the fact that the paradigm that would act as a ground for the praxis of the priest was first elaborated for the action of the devil. It's really an irony of history. But then what